Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Smarter Business Podcast, where we talk to video professionals or professionals who are using video in an interesting way within their business. If you like what you hear today and find it interesting and want to learn more about how to use video in your business, subscribe, share, and/or review this episode. We would really appreciate your support. Today, we're talking with John Scott of Video Coaching for Business. John, I will let you do a little bit of an intro and thank you very much for being on.
Well, thank you, Neil. Yeah, it's really nice to be here. I'm a public speaking coach in the San Francisco Bay Area. And actually, now that it's 2022, this is, believe it or not, my 30-year anniversary of coaching. Because I started in 92 as a singing coach. And I had a really cool little studio right where the ballpark is now in San Francisco. I worked with singers for a long time, but eventually people kept showing up and they would say, hey, can you help me with my public speaking? You know, I'm a stockbroker, I lost my voice, or CEOs wanting to give a presentation. And so I began working with public speakers, and I kind of, the music industry got a little bit spent. And so I went full time into the public speaking 5 years ago. And one of my students actually became the international president of Toastmasters. And that was kind of the key. I was like, okay, here we go. So since the pandemic, we all shifted, right? We're all doing something kind of new. And so I started working with an Italian film director. And he's great with shooting, camera, video. And so we kind of merged our expertise. And so now we're doing video coaching for business. So it's been a really fun ride. And we mainly use live events to drive traffic, train people, and then we funnel people off into some smaller group trainings, which is what we love to do.
That's excellent. Well, first off, congrats on 30 years. That's a great milestone to reach, and it sounds like it's been a very interesting and a path that kind of builds upon itself, right? So you found a good way to kind of keep moving forward, which I think is excellent. And we absolutely agree around here that what you're doing now and what people are getting into is it's super important since the pandemic hit, because even as we kind of start to find things a little more normalized or finding a new way of doing things, this kind of video first business format is really well established for a lot of folks. So thank you for all you're doing in on that end of things. So if you had to boil down what you do right now for your business clients to one sentence, what would you say that one sentence is?
We are helping high-level leaders refine their voice so that they can grow their business with video. And I'm going to do an addendum to that because I think I got it down to like 10 words or something like that. But yeah, it's my position that public speaking has always been the way that leaders have led. It's only recently that we had television or other forms of media. And so the direct communication between a speaker and his audience is still primarily voice. I mean, there are other things that go into it, of course. It's like you need to have a nice background and you need to use your hands and, whatever you have visually is important. But I believe that sound is more important. I believe that the sound of somebody's voice is what really inspires enthusiasm. So that's kind of where we like to specialize. And in terms of let's say you're a solopreneur and you're kind of getting out there and you say, yeah, I think I want to do video. Here's some things that we see that people struggle with. First of all, it's getting comfortable on camera. So you just have to log enough hours so that the green dot becomes your friend, and you get used to talking to people through that lens. But once you've done that, then you need a strategy that will effectively grow your business. You need either more clients, you want to have more sales, you want more influence as a leader. And so that's where we get into talking about your offer, right? Because a lot of people, they're okay with putting out a social video or maybe even a homepage video to describe what they're doing. But we find that when it comes to really talking about their offer and how you're making the world a better place, it takes a little bit of collaboration, a little bit of brainstorming. And so that's one area that we love to do is just, think about carefully about how you position your offer in the market.
Well, that is, yeah, that's a an important space that I think is often overlooked, right? Especially if you're consumed by the fear of getting on camera, then it like once you get over that fear, there's a what's next that ends up happening there. So it's good. It sounds like you all have a plan for that, and we both work a lot with solopreneurs, and that is a group that I think that's even more important for, right?
Mhm.
Because very often when you don't have an office of people or don't have maybe a group, a sounding board to kind of bounce that offer off of, or other elements of your business as well, that can be hard to sort out and to get right. So that's an excellent service that you're providing there, I think.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I appreciate what you're doing with vidwheel, and I haven't really explored your network. I hope to get to know folks, in your group. But yeah, we found that like small groups of 5 or 6, where you get people in a safe environment, and it's probably what you're doing, Neil. But getting people to just throw out an idea. For instance, our next event is a 7-day video challenge, and so to say this is what we're doing. It's a 7-day event. It's $49. It gets you comfortable talking on video, and we begin to explore how you would grow your business. And then people come with their various businesses, and they start talking. And it's so interesting what comes out, and inevitably it's very personal. We make it personal because actually we get people to talk a lot on camera, so they dispel this kind of invisible subconscious barrier between themselves and the audience out there. But once you get into that, you can really explore what your offer is, and it takes a lot of exploration. I call it like wearing different hats, because sometimes you could go here, you could go there, and it's almost impossible to know just by yourself. But once you say it to a small group, and other people say, "Oh yeah, well that makes sense, and I really love that," or "Oh no, don't do that." It's kind of an enjoyable forum.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing like peer support, right? So if you put a lot of people think about getting peer support from similar, people in the same industry, but I find, and I've gone through a course here at our local university at the University of Buffalo that is all about this. It's about like you put business people, business owners, or high level business people in a room and they talk about things, and you end up, you know, finding out that even though you have a completely different business and it's a different size and it's a different industry,
Mhm.
you often run into a lot of the same problems, and it's a great way to sort them out. So I think, yeah, I think we agree on the formula, right? It's all about peer support and like getting, being able to bounce ideas off of people who can give a different perspective, is just so valuable. So
Yes. Mhm.
I'm going to spin what you brought up, your 7-day challenge, and part of the reason that I wanted to have you on to this particular episode of the Smarter Business podcast is this month, in the month of March, on the Vidwheel Creator Network, is Presenting with Video Month. And I've attended them, and I know you're doing them regularly. You're having a lot of these uh, video presentations where you all are, helping people get their feet wet with video. You mentioned the first time on camera, kind of getting over the hump there, and I thought, because you were doing such a great job with that you would be a great fit for Presenting with Video Month. So I'm going to ask you first to go ahead and explain the 7-day challenge in a little more depth if you want to, and let people know where they can find that info or can sign up for it.
Thank you. Sure. So the 7-day video challenge is an opportunity to just dive into video, even if you've already done it, but you just want to refine it. Or if you've never done video, it's for in essence, the kind of more beginners of the group here. And the idea is that we have one meeting where everybody comes together and shares their elevator pitch. So the elevator pitch to us is the bread and butter of being able to present. And you gave me a chance to give mine. Thank you. And it's always fascinating to see people give their elevator pitch. And we give a little bit of live coaching on that first hour. And then Ruggiero has created, by the way, Ruggiero de la Santa is my partner. He's the Italian film director. So he's created a series of videos that give you assignments. And it's very easy. It only takes like 5 minutes. But the first one is that you grab your phone and you go for a walk. You look around your neighborhood and you say, oh, I see this tree is nice. I like this. And you just talk to your camera like it's your best friend. And after a week of talking to your camera for 5 minutes, people change. They become, and they upload their videos. So as an instructor, it's really fun because you get to learn these amazing things about people. I had people from Indonesia in our last group talking about, what it's like to live here. I had somebody living in the mountains of Poland. He took us to the Polish castle, which was in ruins. It was really for me, it was like a Netflix special. So then we all come together and we share what we learn. We talk about, what videos were uploaded and then where we're going. And then we also do a half-hour consultation. And at that time, we talk to them about how they would grow their business. Because business growth is another conversation that's kind of just an introduction to it in the video challenge. So that is what's coming. When we do our other live events, which is our free event, because the video challenge is a paid event, it's $49. The free live events, we present using a deck. And so I believe that live events are really, really powerful and great. And I think LinkedIn really favors the live event presenter. So I highly recommend if you do have a product, you have something to sell, or even if you're wanting to find out about something, but you have some expertise, I highly recommend just throwing up an event on LinkedIn. And it gives you insane advantages. The first is that you can invite 1,000 of your first degree contacts to your event per week. So, for me, I've got a few thousand contacts. I can just sit there for maybe half an hour and invite 1,000 people to my next event, and I'll usually get like 200. So it's a very easy way to drive traffic, I think, much easier than paid advertising or putting out content every day or whatever. So that is in essence of where I see video fitting in with presenting.
That's excellent. And to go back to the LinkedIn part of things, that's a great tip, right? The people get hung up, I think, on how much time you have to invest to hit that threshold where LinkedIn is pushing your content out a lot, or the cash that you would have to spend to get that same exposure. That's an excellent kind of alternate way to reach those people, because at very least you're engaging and touching people within your network. So I like that as a strategy in its own right. um, and the meetings are great. I would recommend anybody who's interested check out one of these free meetings. How, John, would people find them? Should they find you on LinkedIn, or is there a better way to go?
Yeah, I think the best way would be to look for John D. Scott on LinkedIn, and I will accept anybody's request from this network. And And the other thing that you can do is you can look for video coaching for business, and our website, videocoachingforbusiness.com, has free content there. And you can see some of our more professionally edited videos there. And we do actually some video production as well, because Ruggiero is releasing a Netflix-like series in the coming months. So he's a pretty established film director, and he's had short films that have won a lot of competitions around the world. So it's kind of fun to get his perspective, and he's a really interesting person to get to know. He grew up in Venice, Italy, and his parents worked for Disney. So he grew up with a lot of storytelling, and at some point he thought he wanted to go into business, and he went to school in China. But then eventually he gave it all up and went to acting school. So he's trained many actors, and so we always like working as a team, and we kind of we're like Laurel and Hardy. We kind of bounce off each other.
Excellent. You need that kind of partnership, right? To make, especially, yeah, I mean, anytime you're in a partnership, everybody's got to play off each other well. So that's awesome to hear. And yeah, we'll put a link to your LinkedIn profile in the notes for this podcast in this video so that people can find you easily. You talked about a few of the advantages of doing utilizing video when you're presenting live. Is there anything else that you want to touch on there, or do you feel like we're done with its advantages? Because the next thing we're going to talk about is challenges.
Absolutely. Um, I believe that, first of all, if you're doing a presentation, I think it's really important to make the room live and to make the conversation two-way, because people are just so tired of like somebody reading from PowerPoint or somebody reading from a script. So I believe that you do have to prepare to the extent that you can talk extemporaneously about whatever it is that you're doing. But I also, what Ruggiero and I have found is to have blocks of modules where we have a deck prepared. And our PowerPoint is very colorful. We use images that are very human. People, with their arms up in the air, or people around a desk talking to illustrate points. So I believe that if you invest in a presentation where you do have some visual assets, where you can really hone in on just having a few bullet points per slide, we find that that really engages an audience, and then it creates a nice kind of rhythm to a live event where we'll say, okay, we're going to talk about, what gear do you need to shoot video, which is a complete trespass on Neil's territory, because Neil knows
It's
way
all
more
right.
about it than we do. Um, or some module like that, or speech analysis is my favorite, where I talk about what does speech look like when you analyze it with a computer, and what does bad speech look like, and what does good speech look like. So that might be a 5-minute module. We talk about it, and then we say, okay, does anybody have questions? And really, I think to liven up the chat is everybody's challenge, wouldn't you say, Neil?
Oh, yes, yes, I agree. I mean, we run twice monthly live meetings, right? And that is engagement is what it's all about, because everybody's so zoomed out, right? So it's a little difficult to get people through the door, even if they've committed to it, and then beyond that, to kind of keep them engaged is always a challenge. So
Yeah.
that I'm going to use. I'm actually proud of my segue there. Challenges, John. What do you got? What was your? What do you think the biggest challenges are with those meetings?
Well, I think that for us, we're not doing these meetings strictly out of the goodwill of our heart. Okay, we're actually trying to run a business, and we're trying to make sales for our services and that.
Hmm.
So I think that the challenge sometimes is exactly what I mentioned earlier about the offer. It's figuring out the right offer for the right group at the right time. And sometimes, like, one offer will work with one group, and then you'll try it the next time and it won't work. And so I think it's a matter of experience because we haven't really been doing this that long. We started almost 2 years ago, and so we're still kind of adapting and modeling it. So I would say that the challenge is the sales aspect, and I think that for most of the people, I would guess in this room, if you're watching this video, you're probably watching because you want to use video to grow your business. And so, in essence, we're talking about sales, right? And I think that sometimes it's awkward to talk about sales, or like, like I don't want to be salesy. Um, but I think that, figuring out the sales process and how it relates to your event is important as well.
I think that's a great point, and because we've already established we both deal a lot with these solopreneurs, and that group in general can be one that uh, I guess is find sales a little more difficult, right? Unless you're a solopreneur who's doing sales training, you're often somebody who's the craftsman who's gone into business because you like doing whatever you do. So the sales is not usually at top of mind when you start, and it's not maybe everybody's favorite. So do you have any thoughts on the sales process in general for the solopreneur who's trying to grow with video?
I do.
All right, here we go. Let's hear it.
Well, the first is that I think that, we don't usually call it sales. We talk about your offer, how you help people, which is really in essence what it is. But I think that to be able to get into a clear channel where you can just have conversations with people, first of all, so that you invite people and you let them know that you do have the service, and they're going to know that it is a paid service. You're not a volunteer. But then to have a conversation and with somebody who's interested in your service, and for me it would be video coaching, and then you only have to give your price when they ask you, and that makes it so free because if people are really interested in what you do, they're going to ask you for your offer, and you can say, "Oh yeah, it's $50,000 for 2 weeks or whatever." But then when you get out of the business of putting your price out there and sort of selling to people, but building relationships, having conversations with people where they ask you what your pricing is, or could you send a proposal? I love that. And then also, I think, right now, because we just did a couple events, I've met a lot of new people and I'm having a lot of conversations right now. And so I'll have a conversation with most people who I think could either be a client or could be a partner. And Neil, you mentioned, it's great to have a partner. I have all kinds of different partnerships brewing, you know, and I'm always that's one thing I love to do is to think about how we could collaborate with another group. And if you're interested in growing your business, I would look at sales through the lens of conversations and partnerships. And then there's so many win-win situations that you can strike up with people. And also, there is no such thing as a competitor anymore. So, for instance, Neil is actually, in a certain world, Neil, you would be my competitor, wouldn't you?
Right. Yep. But not so much these days, right? Yeah.
Why not? Why are we not trying to split each
So
other's throats?
the way and I have this exact same mentality. That's why we're talking to each other on the podcast. But like the way I describe it is that there are so many fish in the sea, right? You're out in San Francisco, I'm in Buffalo, like we're certainly not on each other's turf. But there's so many fish in the sea, and there's so many ways to differentiate vendors or service providers. So like we focus a lot on our gear, as you already brought up, and kind of solopreneurs and teaching them. But I have my own style, and you all have your own style, and are probably a little more process focused from what I understand. So like it's a little they're little changes, but John Doe is looking for one of our services with all the bells and whistles, and you know oh, as a it's preferable over the other, I guess, right? So that wasn't the most eloquent way to put it, but more fish in the sea, and or so many fish in the sea, and there's always differentiation to be made, and there's always somebody who's a better fit than somebody else based on those differentiations. So,
Right, yeah. I totally agree, and I think that, I think that there's like 750 million people on LinkedIn now. So that's why I welcomed you, and I think I actually got it started, didn't I, by asking you to present at one of our events.
yeah, well, we had spoken, and then I RSVP'd doing an event, and then you were like, "Hey, you want to talk a little bit on this event?" And so
Yeah,
we did that, and now, yeah, now you're on the podcast here. So, like,
it's
I
a
think,
win-win. It's a
yeah,
totally
I
win-win.
think so.
Yeah,
It's all about growing networks and growing awareness, and kind of getting a chance to put our own, the way that we do things out there and have those conversations, and yeah, it all works.
yeah,
um yeah, and I think talking to experts, right, whether it be on your presentation or this podcast, uh it kind of grows that overall knowledge base for our potential clients and our target market. And then the one other thing that I usually mention when that thing comes up is, if you truly are trying to help this client, right? This
mm,
potential client, it's less about trying to wedge them in, square peg round hole type of
mhm,
metaphor, wedge them into the way that you do things, and more about finding them the best option, which is part of the reason I love to um, really get to know people who are in, kind of similar spaces, because very often I'm not the best option for somebody, and I send them on to a different service provider that I think is a better option. So,
yeah, yeah. And then, yeah, then the whole notion of growing your business with video, presenting with video, I think that, we have to be real that we're trying to get more clients, we're trying to make sales.
mhm,
Partnerships like this one, really, really important. And then lots of conversations with everybody that you can, because a conversation with somebody who says no is so valuable, because you're still sending a proposal out and learning, and just, to me, I think I've got like 10 meetings this week with different folks who I met at the event in one way or another. So I really encourage all of you to, just get out there and be a prospector. Like, just think about, and this book that I read, I really love, was called Fanatical Prospecting. And it was this concept that when you meet somebody, they may be a potential client, but they won't turn into a client for 30 to 90 days. So
right,
then, as part of your process with presenting, it has to be embedded in overall sales strategy, so that you go back to those people you met back in December, and you just like share a little comment on one of their posts. It's such a gentle, easy thing to do. And then all of
yeah,
a sudden, or to tell somebody, wow, what you taught me here, Neil, was really helpful, and just send a direct message. Or wow, look at what Neil's doing. I want to recommend him at the bottom of his LinkedIn profile. There's so many ways that we can just do little random acts of kindness on this platform. And eventually, I view it like farming. Okay. So it's like a little seed here, a little seed there.
sure.
Hey, I like your post, I'm going to share. And eventually, over the course of time, you realize, wow, there's some foliage here. you know?
Yeah, yeah, and I use I when I talk about LinkedIn, and I talk about the commenting on somebody's post or whatever, and people maybe, for the same reason that you don't want to come off as salesy or pushy or whatever, you may hesitate to interact with somebody's post that you see as a prospect or whatever, right? But
Right.
I always tell people they want you to interact, right? The reason people are putting themselves out there, the reason they fill out their profile, the reason they make, videos, articles, infographics and post them is because they're trying to generate traffic. So you're or generate interest. So you're doing them a favor by interacting, right? So never feel like, "Ooh, I don't know if I should say this. Will it come off too salesy?" Like, or, are they gonna wonder what I'm up to or whatever?
Who
Like,
is this
just
guy
make
commenting
the
on my
comment.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's how I always push it. Like we're all trying to do the same thing out there, right? We're trying to get noticed, trying to get noticed by the right crowd. We're trying to give our audiences value and commenting, liking, sharing things is a great, super easy way to do that for people if you appreciate what they have said. So,
Yeah. And one last thing, because I think you're going to draw to a close here, but
yeah,
um, I encourage you to reach out and comment to people who are way above you on
that's a
the
good one.
hierarchy, because you never know. You just never know. You might meet somebody else in the stream, but I had a funny thing happen a year ago where I have this category of people that I would follow. And I call them luminaries. They're people who maybe have 1 million followers or more. And so I reached out to this one guy, and it was the weirdest thing. But he actually was like, "Hey, this, thank you, da 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 da." And I don't know, I don't remember how it happened, but I had a meeting with him, and I ended up in a year-long partnership with him. And it was somebody that really changed the course of our business.
Yeah.
So you just never know, and that's what's kind of fun, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's like very often just the ask, right? That you throw an ask out that you don't expect anything from, and it sometimes it hits, right? And it just
Right?
takes a moment, and it can be really beneficial. So,
Yeah.
but you are right. We are running towards the end of our typical runtime here. So I always ask people the same question through every episode here. This is called the Smarter Business Podcast. Do you have, or did you already talk about it with your prospecting book, one thing that you have done for your business or a client's business that you think made that business much smarter?
Well, I think I do want to just reiterate the business of the live event on LinkedIn, because I think that it's really underutilized. I think that a lot of people are nervous to go out on their own and host a live event. But the thing that is so unique about the live event on LinkedIn is that, first of all, the scale, thousands of people over the course of a month you can invite. But the mechanism for which they are invited is, it looks like a friend request, right? It's like, do you want to go to
Yep.
Neil's event with this? And you just like, oh yeah, I'm just used to accepting friend requests. Now, there's a downside that so many people will say yes. Some people might come back and say, hey, I didn't sign up for this because it was such a good invitation model.
Mhm.
So I have to pump that. I just don't know why isn't everyone doing this, Neil?
Well, and it's probably the same reason not everybody's jumping on video and putting it out there, right? But
Right.
I would say if you're nervous about doing a LinkedIn event and you want to get an idea of what it might look like, check out John's events. They come up. How regular are yours? About every month or so?
Yeah, maybe every 6 weeks.
Every 6 weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, check those out, and, we do twice monthly Zoom meetups ourselves on the vidwheel Creator Network. You can find those, on our business page as well. Check them out, they're easy, and I love that as a smarter, thing to do for your business because it is an underutilized aspect of LinkedIn, and they've actually made some improvements recently where it's less they've pulled off the popularity contest aspect of it where it's like all these people are going right and
Mhm.
you have to dig deep to see it, but if people say yes to your event, you can then interact with them a little more easily too. And of course, you get a chance to provide them all the value of your event. So that's an excellent one. John, I'm going to say thank you very much for coming on and sharing your knowledge with uh, the folks who consume this podcast and videocast. And to everyone who is watching, thank you very much for taking in this episode of the Smarter Business Podcast. If you like what you heard today, John's LinkedIn profile will be shared in the notes for this podcast. And please share, subscribe, and review this podcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil. Bye bye.